Om Namah Pranavartaye Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prasantaye Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Satchin Matra Swabhavaye Nitya Muktaya Sambhave Ramanaya Atmanathaye Namo Bhagavate Sada Jagat Pavana Savit Charitram Bhasamanam Swatejasa Vande Nishkarma Niratam Ramanam Munipungavam. My humble pranams. I would like to talk about an extraordinary devotee today. Someone that I had good fortune to interact with. Shri N. Balarama Reddy garu. Dennis Hartel has written a book on Balarama Reddy. He was a great scholar in Sanskrit, Telugu, and in English also. He studied in Benares Hindu University. He had an MA degree in those days, talking about the 1920, late 1920s. But during the course of his studies in Benares Hindu University, he developed a deep disgust for the worldly life, and he wanted to get into the spiritual side, spiritual line. So he went to various sadhus and sages in North India, and finally Balarama Reddy garu came to Pondicherry to Sri Aurobindo Ashram. This was in the year 1930-31, around that time. In Aurobindo Ashram, both mother and Sri Aurobindo, both of them were very affectionate, and they spotted in him a great tapaswin, a great sadhaka. But during that time, Kapali Shastri, who was also an inmate of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, many of you may have heard about Kapali Shastri. Kapali Shastri is a great Sanskrit scholar, and he was a disciple of Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni. And he had visited Ramana Ashram, and to mention one day to Balarama Reddy that, have you seen the sage of Arunachalam? That was the first time that he heard about Arunachalam and the sage of Arunachalam. He wanted to come. So in 1933, I think he came to Arunachalam one day. There was a one-day visit, first time. The moment he saw Bhagavan, he was fascinated. What he saw in Bhagavan was, at that time, his accessibility. Because in Aurobindo Ashram, it's not possible to meet Aurobindo Yogi. It's possible to exchange notes with him, but once in a year or twice in a year only he will give darshan. It's not possible to meet him and interact with him. One can ask questions and he will give replies next day and so on. That was the thing. But here he saw a sage whom one could sit with, talk to, joke with. People, he saw people joking around Bhagavan, discussing about ordinary mundane things, Bhagavan remaining as a sakshi. In the dining hall, he ate with him. And being a new visitor, he was given the first place next to Bhagavan on that day. So he says, when everything was served, and he has a very gracious nod, to say, indicate that you can all start eating now when everything is served. So he looked at Balarama Reddy and he did that. Balarama Reddy says that was a very thrilling experience for me. The grace of his movements and so on. So in the evening, he left. That was the first visit. He left, and before he left, he went to Bhagavan and took his approval to go back to his place. And very uncharacteristically for Bhagavan, Bhagavan asked him, where are you coming from? I believe Bhagavan never asked this question to anybody. Very unusual. Who are you? Where are you coming from? All these things, never in his case. But Balarama Reddy himself came to know that it was a very unusual gesture on the part of Bhagavan much later, very much later. So he asked him, where are you from? So when Bhagavan breaks his own routine, one can say that there is a divine plan behind the whole thing. So he asked, so he said, I am from Arabindashram. He nodded his head. He went back and his mind was full of Bhagavan. His mind was not in the ashram at all, Aravinda ashram at all. And after some 1 or 2 years, he once again visited. This time for about 3 days, he came to Ramanashrama. And in his mind, the major question at that time was, is it right to change one's guru? After having lived with Shri Aurobindo and mother, the ashram, is it right for anybody to change one's guru? Was the thing that went on in his mind continuously. So in that visit, he asked Bhagavan, Bhagavan, is it right to change one's guru? And Bhagavan replied, why not? Bhagavan's replies will always be another question. Why not? He said. And he said that if one responds to one guru in a particular manner, that is his guru. You can be certain that you have a great resonance with somebody. That is his guru. In a very general manner, he said this. And on that visit, Balarama Reddy had another great experience. He bowed down to Bhagavan, and he knew that there was an ashram rule that nobody should touch Bhagavan. He bowed down to Bhagavan, his head was close to his feet, and he had this great desire. He would like to touch his feet. But then he restrained himself. It seems Bhagavan's feet slowly rose, and both his toes, Bhagavan's toes, big toes, they touched Balarama Reddy Garu's 2 eyelids in a very, very soft manner. That was another great thrilling experience for Balarama Reddy. After going back to the ashram, Aurobindo ashram, he wrote a letter to both mother and Shri Aurobindo that he would like to go back to Ramanashramam and he would like to be with Bhagavan. Because he wanted to take their approval before going to Ramanashram. But the reply that came from Shri Aurobindo was not very satisfactory. He said, whatever you want to get, you will be able to get here. Where do you want to go to some other place? So when the reply came in this manner, he did not know what to do. But after some time, once again, he wrote another letter. He got the same reply. There was no change in the mindset of Shri Aurobindo at that time to let him go. When this was going on, he visited the ashram once again. And, he was not able to tell Bhagavan also anything about that time. But then, the desire to be with Bhagavan started increasing several fold. So the next time he went to Aurobindo ashram, he continuously wrote to Shri Aurobindo seeking his permission to leave him. Then he got a reply from him. In that reply, Shri Aurobindo said, you could have got anything that you wanted here in this place. Not only self-realization, which you are seeking, but also the supra-mental state. He had a technical term for the yogic state at that time. Even the supra-mental state is possible for you. But now that you are determined to seek a path which is going to lead you only to partial self-realization, I give the approval for you to go. So he wrote, you are determined to seek a path which is going to result in partial self-realization. So I give you the permission to come. He was happy that the permission came, but at the same time, he was quite dissatisfied with the way in which the reply was given. So he had the chit with him. They don't allow anybody to take away the replies of Shri Aurobindo in that ashram. But then he made an exception, knowing fully well that it is not allowed. He kept that last letter alone with him. And then he went to the ashram and started living in the ashram. He took a rented accommodation in the town, and then he used to go and visit the ashram starting from 5 o'clock. He never left that place. There were no restrictions because of he being a male also. Only up to some time you can stay and all that thing. So he continued to stay with Bhagavan. Balarama Reddy garu is such a great scholar, so very well read, that he could have written a lot of books because his knowledge of Sanskrit was superb and his knowledge of English was also so very good. He had a knowledge of French also because he was staying in Pondicherry for a long time. He knew French also. He did not write a letter, any book. He did not give any lectures. He did not want to teach anybody anything. All his perfect understanding of Bhagavan, the perfect understanding of Bhagavan's teachings, he used it only to grow within himself. He kept it all inside himself and grew inside. In fact, later on also people had to draw him out. Nobody really knew that such a great devotee lived in the ashram for a long time. But people from the Hyderabad Kendram, we had a passport in the name of Dr. K. Subramanian. So whenever we showed that passport, a lot of doors opened in ashram, and Reddy garu's room was one such thing. He was very affectionate towards us and he would take us, talk to us about Bhagavan. This is what Dennis Hartel writes, that he could have written so much about Bhagavan, but he used all the knowledge because he did not want his ego as a writer, as a speaker, as a teacher to rise in any manner. He just kept himself to himself. There are certain incidents that he has described that I will relate now. First thing is his comparison of Bhagavan with Lord Rama. He is such a well-read person. In one article that he wrote because of great compulsion, he wrote one article on Bhagavan, and that he begins that article with this particular shloka from Valmiki Ramayana. Nivasa vrikshaha sadhunam apannanam paragatihi artanam samshrayaschaiva yashasascha eka bhajanam. That is a verse. This verse occurs in Kishkindha Kandam, and these words are uttered by Tara to Vali. Tara's wife, Vali's wife Tara, when Sugriva challenges Vali for the second time, he gets defeated only a few days earlier, but that suddenly he comes and then once again challenges Vali for a fight, Sugriva. When this happens, Vali is preparing himself for the fight. Tara goes and tells him, there is something suspicious about the whole thing. There's something fishy, the whole thing. He got defeated only a few days back. But how can he have the confidence to challenge you? You beat him up black and blue. How does he have the confidence? There's something behind the whole thing. Think about it, she tells Vali. And he says, through my spy network, I have come to know that they are in touch with two divine beings. Their names are Rama and Lakshmana. And what I hear is, Rama has never been conquered. He has never been conquered. He is such a great warrior. They have caught hold of him. Not only that, I know something about Rama. And then she gives this particular verse about Rama. So what Balarama Reddy says is, whatever she talked about, Tara talked about Lord Rama, plays to Bhagavan. Nivasa vrikshaha. He is a great tree under which all the sadhus go and then live. Sadhunam, Nivasa vrikshaha sadhunam. Bhagavan was very fond of calling himself as a sadhu. Would not describe himself as a rishi, sage. We are all sadhus. We have to uphold the sadhu dharma. That's what he used to say. So the same word Tara uses here. He is a great shelter for all the sadhus. Apannanam paragatihi. Apannas are people who are destitutes, abandoned by the society. They go to him because he is their great refuge, one sole refuge, paragatihi. Now we can think of the kitchen workers, the child widows who were abandoned by everybody. They came, they served the ashram as kitchen workers, and they grew spiritually so much. One or two of them were really realized souls after having associated with Bhagavan. There is a lady by name Shankaramma. I believe Ganeshan talks about the Shankaramma. He found her in the meditation hall reading some book, which happened to be Ribhu Gita and all the things. He had been watching her and then said, Amma, you are reading all these things and you are also very, very quiet and very calm. It seems she said that I had the great good fortune to be with Bhagavan in the kitchen all the time. And I don't know what happened. I do not know any of these things. Suddenly my mind became very calm. Towards the end of his life, my mind became very calm. And one day I went and told Bhagavan, because I wanted to know whether the state that I was in is the correct one, final one. So when he was washing his hands near the kitchen, I stood behind. He looked at me and then said, what? Then I said, I quoted this particular verse from Kaivalya Navanitam. Ayyane, Enadulle, Ananta Kodi Janmangal, Nindraanda, Meyyane, Upadeshikka, Velivanda Guruve. Like that it goes. Is this the state? The question. He says, yes. And what can I do in return for you? The verse says that. Bhagavan Sim said that the very next verse in Kaivalya Navanitam is an answer for your question. Keep to your state. Don't swerve from the state. Be in that state all the time. That is all. That is the reward one can give to one's guru. So like that, great spiritual beings evolved in the kitchen. Destitutes who were abandoned by the society. They came, stayed there and evolved. Arthanam Samshrayaschaiva. Samshrayam is a place where one's suffering goes. One can call it as a hospice. Mental suffering, physical suffering, all these things are taken care of. Arthanam, those who are suffering, they go to him and then they get relief in his presence. See, Tara is talking about Rama. One can see that everything really matches with Bhagavan's own characteristics. And finally he says, Yashasascha Eka Bhajanam. One great repository of Yashas. Yashas is fame, glory. He is the single most repository of fame and glory. This Rama, be very careful. Maybe Vali Sugriva is associating himself with these people. And then you need not go for this fight at all. But anyway, in Ramayana, he goes and then certain things happen and so on. The thing is, the genius of Balarama Reddy garu to have picked out from an obscure place this gem of a verse and then presented it as how it is matching so well with our Bhagavan. He was a great Rama Bhakta, Balarama Reddy. So the God he worshipped, actually he saw in flesh and blood in front of him with Bhagavan. In his room, people who have gone to his room in the ashram will see hundreds of books all around him. He will be sitting in a couch and there are some 2 or 3 chairs for the visitors just opposite to that couch. And there'll be piles of books all around. But he knew which book was where at any time. So whenever we went and he wanted to refer to something, he'll say, go to that pile and then pick up the 4th book from the top. And then that will be the book that he was seeking. No, it'll come. So once when somebody remarked about this marvelous method of, pointing out to the correct book that he wanted, he said about his own experience with Bhagavan. Seems in the very early stages of Balarama Reddy garu's life with Bhagavan, Bhagavan used to talk to him about so many things, which is again a very uncharacteristic thing of Bhagavan. He would talk about other Siddhantam, various other like Dvaitam, Visishtadvaitam, other philosophies and so on and so forth. He was tutoring him, mentoring him in so many ways. So one day I believe he wanted to refer to something. So asked Reddy garu to go and pick up the book And then there used to be a revolving shelf in Bhagavan's meditation hall. So he looked for that book. He could not find the book. So he came back, told Bhagavan, no, I'm not able to find the book, and then sat on the ground in his place. Then Bhagavan got up. He majestically walked up to the bookshelf and just picked that book. And then instead of returning to the couch, it seems Bhagavan came and sat next to Balarama Reddy on the ground. Opened the book to the passage that he wanted. It came. And it seems he leaned towards Balarama Reddy. See this? This is what I was referring to. When Bhagavan leaned towards Balarama Reddy, he says, I felt that there was a big dynamo operating. I heard the attendants of Bhagavan saying that his touch would be like a furnace. His body, if you touch the body, it would be like a furnace. And I experienced it at the time. The vibrations from him was something that was marvelous. I was not able to really understand how such a great being has concealed everything within, accepted all the limitations of this body, that universal consciousness has limited itself to such a small frame and walked with us. He's concealing such a power inside him. I could feel that, said Balarama. It's because we told him that you are able to spot a book. He said, this is what happened to me. And because of his knowledge of French, one day when the secretary to the governor of Pondicherry visited the ashram, he was a secretary to the governor of Pondicherry, the French dominion at that time. So the ashram people asked Balarama Reddy to go with him to Bhagavan because interpretation may be required. He had a big list, I believe. So he gave the list to Bhagavan. Bhagavan called Reddy Garu, please translate this. So it was a very complicated list of questions. And then he started in a very difficult manner. Balarama Reddy Garu was trying to translate that into Telugu to tell Bhagavan. Yes, Bhagavan said, you don't have to do all that. Just give me the gist. Go through the test and just give me the gist of what he wants. So Reddy Garu told Bhagavan, he does not want any lengthy philosophical explanations. What he wants is an experience, says Bhagavan. And then he slowly turned his face towards the secretary and looked at him. After 30 seconds, that man started shivering, started trembling. And then it seems he cried out, Bhagavan, no, not now, not now. I'm not ready now. Don't. I'm not ready now. Don't. He was not able to take the power of his sight at that time. Reddy felt, Reddy Garu says he felt, what a being is this? What a divine being is this? Just by a look, he was able to induce a state. Of course, he was not prepared to take that state. Just aside from Balarama Reddy Garu, there was a great, very well-known teacher by name U.G. Krishnamurti. I don't know whether how many of you know about U.G. Krishnamurti. He was with Jiddu Krishnamurti for some time, but he broke away from him. And he had come to Ramanashram. I had met him also when he came to Hyderabad sometime. That U.G. Krishnamurti came to ashramam, spent some time with Bhagavan. It seems he asked Bhagavan, Bhagavan, you seem to be in some state. Can you give me that state? It seems Bhagavan said, I can give it, but can you take it? So that kind of shook him up. This person, he was spiritually inclined. This counter question, he did not expect from Bhagavan. When he said, I can give it, but can you take it? He did not know what it was. He started working on it. He says later on, because of that encounter, I had a great spiritual awakening in Switzerland. Actually, he was in Switzerland that time. And then, many of you may know this director Mahesh Bhatt. Mahesh Bhatt was a disciple of this U.G. Krishnamurti. He has written about it. There's a book of U.G. Krishnamurti also. Anyway, the point is this. Bhagavan, if he wanted to give you that state, he was in a position. That's why, as I said, there is no argument against an experience. You can have arguments about a philosophy, about theology, all kinds of things. You can formulate your own arguments and then say this is not correct, that's not correct. But if something experience is given to you, afterwards there's no kind of an argument. Everything is settled there. So Balarama Reddy says this was something amazing. Once I was sitting with Balarama Reddy in his room. There is a path from just before you go to Skandashramam. Into the left side, there is a small gate, and then you go through, there is a path. You can go to Palakuttu from there. And there are a number of rooms in that. He was in the second room on the left side. Balarama Reddy was staying in that. So once I was sitting with him in that room, and I asked him, what was Bhagavan like? What did he look like? I asked him. Very silly question, but that's a question that came to my mind. I asked him, what is Bhagavan like? Immediately his eyes closed. He went into a deep meditative posture. He was reliving all those moments with Bhagavan. So he said, Bhagavan's color was like burnt gold. His color was like burnt gold. Ponnar Meniyane, we know the Devaram, like burnt gold. And he would walk this path after the lunch every day. He would walk, go up to Palakuttu. That was his exercise. And he would go back. Sometimes I would accompany him. He was telling me all this. Sometimes I would accompany him. It seems once there was a person by name Guy Haig. He was an American. He acted in some movies also. That person came to the ashram and he was interested in social service. So all his questions were about social service. He used to ask Bhagavan, all this meditation and all this self-inquiry and other things. Better than this would be to serve the public. There's no point in just sitting in one place. But Bhagavan would say that, if you know yourself, that itself is great tapas, that itself is great service, whole world is benefited, all those things Bhagavan would tell him. But somehow in his mind, he was convinced that social service is the only way to reach a high spiritual plane. So that person was walking behind Bhagavan one day, and Balarama Reddy also joined him. So they were going, and Bhagavan was going a little ahead. So this man once again asked Bhagavan, after self-realization, can I serve others? That was the question. Again, he is coming back to the same thing, but Bhagavan is insisting that have your self-realization. So he asked this question, after self-realization, can I serve others? He asked Bhagavan. Bhagavan was going 2-3 steps ahead. He stopped, turned around, and replied in English. Normally, he does not do that. Though he knew that Balarama Reddy Garu was with him, he replied in English. Again, another question as a reply. Where are others after self-realization? Where are others after self-realization? That is the way. Bhagavan would always come back to that when you realize the self, there's only one. This unitary, singular consciousness alone is there, and the entire thing is all contained in you. So he says, where are others after self-realization? So Balarama Reddy Garu remembered this. And he used to say that there would be very scholarly discussions in Bhagavan's presence. And Bhagavan would just be a witness to the whole thing. All kinds of discussions would take place. Pandits would be discussing, sometimes it would be discussions of political things and so on. But once it seems Kavyakanta and Vishwanatha Swami and some others, they were discussing about Kavyas, the great, Kavyas of Sanskrit, especially Kalidasa's And there was a discussion on Abhijnana Shakuntalam, one of the most, Shakuntalam is the most famous of Kalidasa's creations, a drama. It seems Kavyakanta was describing the Kanvashramam, where Shakuntala was there, and she was going to see Dushyanta. She was thinking that she would go and meet the king and then get married. So she is taking leave of all the inmates of the ashram. This is the discussion. This is talking about all the fine points of Kalidasa's narration at the time. There is a mention of a tree with medicinal characteristics by name Ingudi. Ingudi is the name of the tree that was mentioned by Kalidasa. And I believe this tree has an oil which will cure all injuries. So Shakuntala, when she was going, it seems one deer pulled her back. And she looked behind and then saw the deer. The deer was nursed by Shakuntala when the deer was injured. And then she had applied Ingudi oil onto that and then revived that deer. And that is the story. That is the way the whole thing is described. It seems Bhagavan said that Ingudi is available in our forest here. And Kavyakanta was stunned. This was a mythical kind of a tree with, I thought, who knows about any Ingudi here? And if you want, I can show you. It seems Bhagavan told Kavyakanta. So Kavyakanta, Vishwanatha Sastri, Muruganar, everybody trooped behind Bhagavan. Bhagavan took them to the Tiruvannamalai forest and then showed, this is the tree. This is the Ingudi tree. Kavyakanta, it seems, later on told Balarama Reddy. He has not read any kavyas when he came here. Not read anything at all. Where did he get this exposure? And he is not a botanist to know this is the tree, this is the characteristics of the tree. What does he know? How does he know all these things? And I believe he later answered, he is a Sarvajna. And it is our good fortune that he took part in this discussion and showed us that this is what it is and so on. There was another discussion in Bhagavan's presence, which was a very thrilling experience for Balarama Reddy. It seems the discussion was about how tough it is to realize oneself. One has to keep on doing, and it's so very rare that somebody is able to realize. But, for ordinary people, one has to struggle a lot, put in a lot of efforts to finally get that self-realization. And somebody quoted Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. He quoted one shloka which says, Bahunam janmana mante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamitam sa mahatma sudurlabha. That is the verse where Lord Krishna says, it takes several janmas before a jnani can obtain me, reach up to me. Jnanavan mam prapadyate. And then he has the vision that everything is only one, Vasudeva Sarvamidam. So, Bahunam Janmana Mante, when this was recited, it seems Bhagavan got up, was in a reclining position. He sat up. Bahunam Janma? Why should it take so many lifetimes? Here and now it is possible. This is what Bhagavan said, I believe. And the authoritative manner in which he said those words and the power behind those words, Reddy Garu says, the entire hall, we were all plunged into that state for a brief period of time. Here and now it is possible. He says, who else but Bhagavan can challenge somebody like Lord Krishna? After Bhagavan's Mahanirvanam, lot of foreign visitors used to go to Balarama Reddy. And they were benefited by the authoritative manner in which he spoke to them about Bhagavan's teachings. People like Dennis Harter, they were so impressed. That's why he wrote a book on Balarama Reddy's reminiscences. We had the good fortune of having Balarama Reddy visit us in Hyderabad Kendram. There was in the 1985-86, around that time, he came and spent some 3 months in Hyderabad. He was staying in a hotel room. And all of us used to go and sit with him. Many of us would bunk our offices just to be with him. Because all these things, the way in which he described, the way in which he enjoyed Bhagavan, the experiences that he had were so very precious. So the room was accessible, he was accessible during that time. One day, he was telling us about his own experience with one Krishna Prem. He's an Englishman. I don't know how many of you know. His name is Ronald Nixon. He called himself as Krishna Prem because he became a Krishna Bhakta. He was a professor in Lucknow. And he happened to meet a colleague's wife who initiated him into Krishna Bhakti. With that, he became a great Bhakta and he left all his job and he turned into a Hindu and he called himself a Krishna Prem, very popular. He has written a number of books also. Knowing about Bhagavan, he came to the ashram and he was talking to Bhagavan about, Vaishnavism and Visishta Advaitam and so many things. And one day it seems, Bhagavan, I want to show the idol that I worship. Would you like to see it? Bhagavan said, by all means. So he took out, he had a Jolna bag. From that, he took out the Krishna idol, a small idol of Krishna, in a crawling manner. The child Krishna, that kind of a thing. He took it out and then Bhagavan took it from his hand and then kept it on his hand and he looked at it. And Krishna Prem saw that Bhagavan shed tears and those tears fell on the idol. He was so stunned and so happy at the same time. And then later on he told Balarama Reddy, you said that your Bhagavan is a jnani, but today I was witness to this particular thing. He looked at that idol and shed tears. That's what I saw. Reddy Garu told him that we cannot compartmentalize Bhagavan. He said he is this and he is that. He is the universal. And Bhagavan asked Balarama Reddy Garu to take Krishna Prem to many sthalas that he wanted to visit in South India. One of the places was Sri Rangam. All these things Balarama Reddy is relating to us in his hotel room in Hyderabad. He is telling all these things. He took him to Sri Rangam. And Sri Rangam, moment this Krishna Prem saw the Dhwajastambam of Sri Rangam temple, the flag pole of Sri Rangam, I believe he went into some kind of a Bhava Samadhi. Bhava Samadhi is, you might have seen the posture of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, whenever he went into that ecstatic mood, he would stand like this, his body would go still, hand will go up, and then, eyes will be fixed. But there'll be no movement at all. He would get into that kind of a Bhava Samadhi. So I believe he had that kind of an experience, and Balarama Reddy felt, a person from a different culture, he's able to get this kind of an experience, he used to think. And then he told us the same thing happened to Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Bengal. I believe when he visited Puri Jagannatham, when he went to the Puri temple, Jagannath temple in Puri, when he saw the flagpole, I believe he went into Samadhi. And there are many songs about what happened to him in Puri and all that. So Reddy Garu started telling us everything about the Jagannath temple and the traditions that are there, the customs that are being done in the Jagannath temple. All of us were listening to all this. About 1 hour or so of all these discussions about Puri Jagannatham, one stranger entered into that room and he had not seen Balarama Reddy for a very long time, and he came to know that he was staying in Hyderabad, so came to see him. Somebody from the south of Andhra Pradesh, he came. And then Reddy Garu inquired about him, and then he sat in the same place. And then I want to give some prasad to you. And then he got up and then gave a small piece of laddu or some such thing to prasadam. Where is this from? He said, Puri Jagannath. Just about within a few minutes, a prasadam comes after he finishes talking about Puri Jagannatham. Prasadam came from Puri. I used to think, this is exactly what used to happen in Bhagavan's time. When Bhagavan talked about something, Madurai Meenakshi, somebody will come and then give, this is the Vibhuti from Meenakshi temple. Oh, Amma has come, and he would put the Vibhuti on his forehead. So this, what used to happen, this all recorded by Suri Nagamma and so many other people. Same thing got repeated in the presence of Balarama Reddy. In 95, he left the body. He was in Bangalore at that time. He had a problem and he had checked up. The doctor said, you are okay. There's nothing wrong with you. But he had a vision that Bhagavan came to the hotel room and then beckoned him, come with me. So he told the attendant, put a chair for him. Bhagavan is here. Put a chair for him. He thought that he is not in his normal mood. The attendant thought that he's not in a way, is he talking about Bhagavan and then keeping a chair and all that. It seems that night he passed away. Even though the doctor had given a clean chit to Reddy Garu's health, he passed away that night. Where in the morning he had the vision of Bhagavan and he left the body at that time. His association with our Kendram was enormous. He has donated all his books to our library. Our library contains mostly the books of Balarama Reddy Garu. And it is because of his insistence that we actually built a building. Till that time, we didn't have a building at all. He said that people will come, they will come to meditate here in this place. You should have a place for that. And because of that only, we are now having the thing. Our association with this extraordinary devotee. We used to say that whenever we entered Bhagavan's presence, we were entering into another plane of existence. The whole world was left behind by all of us. The world did not exist for us. The world as we know did not exist for us when we sat in the presence of Bhagavan. That was the experience, and that experience he passed on. He has given an interview. In his hotel has taken an interview. This is available as a video also. And it was our great good fortune that we could see him in the Kendram and then listen to him. And one last incident, and then I will close my lecture. Towards the end of Bhagavan's earthly life, he was in the Mahanirvana room. And Reddy Garu said that others used to queue up around outside his room, but I did not want to go because I did not want to disturb Bhagavan. His body was in a very bad situation, so I didn't want to disturb him. But one day, a call came from the ashram authorities saying that one minister from the government, Tamil Nadu government, it was called as the Chennai presidency in those days, that Madras presidency. So a minister has come from that state. He would like to see Bhagavan, please take him. His name was Balarama Reddy. He took him to the place. When he entered the Nirvana room, along with the minister, spent a few minutes, and then they both of them prostrated to Bhagavan and came out. Balarama Reddy Garu noticed a very strange light, a diffused light. When you dim a light and then you do not know what is the source is. This is not a sunlight thing, but there was a light in the room. So he was a little surprised to see the light. What it was, what is the source, he was not knowing. He came out. It seems the minister asked him, what is that strange light in Bhagavan's room? So Reddy Garu felt, not only me, he has also seen it. It is a physical thing. I thought that it is because of my devotion that I was able to see some halo around him and all the thing. But does not seem to be the case. It seems to be a very physical thing which others are also able to pick up. People who are not knowing anything about Bhagavan are also able to pick up. That's what he said. And then he remembered this particular verse from Kavya Kanta. Tan Kanjuka Gupta Mahamahasa. Ghana Buddha. This is the second verse in Ganaranmuka Suri Sabha Guruna Guna Sanchita Ratna Mahodadhina Kanaguda Sahasra Karena Yata. Sahasra Kara is Surya. Just as clouds hide the Surya and then completely hide the effulgence within. Tanu Kanjuka Gupta Maha Mahasa. His body has been hiding this light all along. Kanjukam is an armor. In Sanskrit, Kanjukam means an armor. He has used his body as an armor to conceal such an effulgent light within him. And now that the body is breaking up, that light is coming up. It is a physical thing that one could see with him. And we all know when the end came, this is the light that went out. Seen all through the country, all over the country. In all corners of the country, people could see that meteoric light. So, Reddy garu used to talk about this and then say that something, it's not possible to compare Bhagavan to anybody else, he used to say. It's not possible to compare. We can compare Bhagavan only to Bhagavan, not with anybody else. And again, he would quote from Ramayana. There is one place in Ramayana in Yuddha Kandam where Valmiki says, Gaganam Gagana Akaram, Sagaraha Sagaropamam. You cannot, what is the object that you can compare the sky to? Is there anything that you can compare the sky to? Sky is comparable only to the sky. Gaganam Gagana Akaram. Sagaraha Sagaropamam. Ocean can be compared only to ocean. Is there any other object that we can compare it with? In a similar way, he says, Bhagavan can be compared only to Bhagavan. In Valmiki Ramayanam, this example comes for Rama Ravanayor Yuddham, Rama Ravanayoriva. How can we say? How can we compare the battle between Rama and Ravana? It is like the battle between Rama and Ravana. That's how Valmiki says. And then he says the same thing applies to Bhagavan. He cannot be compared to anything. And we had the great good fortune of being with him. And you know, by being with Balarama Reddy garu and Dr. K.S. and others, we had the same feeling. They had seen Bhagavan. Their lamp was lit by the Mahadipam, and that lit up lamp, some of us were very fortunate to see. And then so with this, I will conclude. I would like to express my deep gratitude to all of you. It's been one of the greatest of experiences we've ever had. This kind of an atmosphere, the devotion, the deep knowledge that everybody has here is something that is very, very rare, and it is by Bhagavan's grace. I am blessed by Bhagavan because he gave me this association. I'm so very thankful.